gonna lie, I don't love the idea of homework, especially for like kindergarten, first grade. But you might find yourself in a situation where your admin is requiring that you give homework, or your families are kind of really wanting homework. And so if that's the case, I have a little workaround for you that might help you out with this situation. So I was thinking about, okay, the thing I don't like about homework is usually it's not like the student who's doing the homework, they're getting help with it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if they need help. But also I want it to be something that they will enjoy, something that feels like it's for them instead of for me as the teacher, because they are going to enjoy it, they're going to learn from it. So with that in mind, I thought about making more of a play-based approach to homework. So I compiled 36 different games that families can play in their home at their leisure to kind of help them with the math skills that they were learning instead of traditional paper, pencil, worksheet type stuff. So what did you need for this? I will say that it does require some prep up front, but once you prep it, it's done for the entire year because the games range in like counting by ones all the way to the end of the kindergarten school year. So once prepped once at the beginning of the year, you're good for the rest of the year. So think about that as a time investment. You're also going to need to provide families with some materials or ask some families if they're willing to donate to the classroom. And I often find a lot of families who are, but I also got some Amazon wishlist money. So I definitely used it I definitely added some of these things to my Amazon wishlist. So you're going to need to prep the materials. You're going to need dice, and you're going to need a deck of playing cards for each student. And that's it. That's all you need for this resource. So what is included? There is a kind of an explanation letter for families. So if they're not sure kind of how to play or what to do, it's all explained in the letter. Also kind of the philosophy of why we're doing this versus worksheets or something along those lines. And depending on how you communicate with your families, you can even say like, okay, we're working on this, so I want you to play these 3 games. Or working on this, I want you to play these 3 games. It really depends on the way that your curriculum is set up and what you're working on for a kind of a schedule that will work with your families and your teaching. So in the packet, there are 36 games that address all of the Common Core standards for math in kindergarten. So this has the teacher preparation tips and printing tips. It has the family letter with preparation tips. I will say that everything in this packet that is student facing that families would need is in English and in Spanish. I teach Spanish immersion, so half of my students are native Spanish speakers and half of them are native non-Spanish speakers, most of them being English. So half English speakers, half Spanish speakers. So everything is in both languages so that all of my families could participate. So like I said, printing tips, family letter, I had numeral tracks with and without dice. I had 5 frames, 10 frames, 20 frames, a hundreds chart, number cards with 1 to 20, 10 frame cards with 1 to 20, shape cards, a graphing chart, a comparison T chart, and a game board. So those are all of the things that I had in this packet for families to use. We'll say that these family notes are editable, so you can edit them as you see fit. If you want to add something else, if you want to take something else out, that's all there for you. And like I said, 36 different games. And part of what is in the parent note as well as in the actual instructions of the games are what families can do if a game is too difficult for their kids or if a game is too easy for their kids. So it gives suggestions like increasing the number range or decreasing the number range, or having them say, like, repeat counting, like count with you instead of just counting for you, things along those lines. So some examples of some of the games. So one of the games that I put in there would be for later on in the year. It's called Race to 100. So each player would have a writing utensil and paper. So they would turn over a card, like say I got 8 and the person who's playing with me got 5. We write down that number. And then you pick out another card, and if I had 8 and a 3, then 8 plus 3 is 10, so I got 10. If they got another 5, then they would also have 10, so we're even, we have 10. So they would keep picking a card and adding it to their total until they got to 100. Another kind of game that they might play is called Under the Cup, which is more about decomposing numbers. So to play Under the Cup, you would hide, well, it's under the cup, but it could be under your hand. You don't necessarily need a cup. So you would hide, so if you have 6 items, you might hide 3 of them under your hand and then have 3 out. So the other person would have to figure out how many you have hiding under the cup or under your hand. There are also some suggestions of things they can just do anywhere, like when they're on a walk, in the car, like practice row counting, practice skip counting, kind of describing things to their kids like, oh, I see something that's in the shape of a circle. What do you see that might be in the shape of a circle? Kind of suggestions. And there are also some activities that families can do to get their kids moving. So if they're working on number recognition, you could get the numbers that they're working on, like 1 to 5, and the grown-up or caregiver could hide them around their house and be like, okay, I want you to look for the 4. Go find me the 4. And then they go look around for it and then come back and find the 4. So it gets them moving. If your parent or caregivers like, I'm not trying to move around right now, but the kids have a lot of energy, I have some options that are more movement oriented too, so that their kids can have lots of different options and lots of different choices for these games. One caveat I will say is that you have to understand that like some families might not be able to play all the time. Maybe they'll have, work commitments or traveling a lot or things of that nature that might not allow them to get the most out of this resource. But the idea is that you have it, and if you're checking in with them, they might be more motivated to play and to get some extra practice in where they need it. The little game, forgot to mention, the little game cards have exactly what materials they'll need to play that game, so they can easily pull them out. And you suggest to your families to keep them all together so that they don't lose any of the pieces. I will have all of this written out in a blog post in the description, as well as where you can get this whole resource if that's something that you are interested in. Hopefully this alleviates some of the homework conundrum you might find yourself in, and I hope that your families really enjoy the games.